hate to say this, but because of the bike ride, I really don't like Missouri any longer. It was the most painful stretch of road that we went down through Missouri, and I can assure you, Jack has been through your state. It was probably about 70 miles an hour on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, but he went through the state. And that rental car will never, ever be the same. When I took the rental car back that next day, they just kind of looked at me like, "Are you serious?" But I want to share with you some of the things that we're doing with the Remember the Removal bike ride. We actually did this at the Cherokee Nation 26 years ago this year. There were 25 bike riders that went, and many of them are employees and continue to work inside the Cherokee Nation today. So it's left a lasting impression with those folks that attended the bike ride 26 years ago. So as part of the 25th anniversary of that bike ride, we retraced it last year and again this year. And it's a very powerful tool, and I'll share with you some of the reasons why we do it. The Cherokees have a rich, strong history, and each of the bike riders and several of our citizens have on wristbands similar to the Live Strong wristbands of recognizing those that have survived cancer. We wear wristbands that say survive, adapt, prosper, and excel. And that is our legacy and our history, especially through the eyes and the story of the Trail of Tears, that we face such adversity, but not only do we face it, we survive it, we adapt, we prosper, and excel to become the nation that we are today. And so ultimately our vision at the Cherokee Nation is to become a happy and healthy people. And as Chief Smith indicated earlier, we learned through history, and we learned that we do not want to repeat some of those things in history. And as we educate ourselves, so we make wise decisions, so that we make sure that we pass on our legacy and become happy and healthy. So the bike ride is an experience-based opportunity where we teach the bike riders several things. It also educates the public and brings more attention to the Trail of Tears and the story behind that. But with each rider, we also do a genealogy research. Mr. Baker helps us go through and do research for each of the riders so they can see their ancestry. And it makes the Trail of Tears that much more powerful when they go to a particular site, and we can say, you three are descendants of Nancy Ward, you three are descendants of Eric Conrad, as we stand at their gravesite or their cabins or their homes. And we also teach them a lot about individual strength and strength inside a group, because in all honesty, when we decided to do this, we started planning it, we laid everything out, we mapped it, Jack and I drove it, we had every piece of technology that we needed. But when it came right down to putting your feet in the pedals that first day and think, I'm going to ride 1,000 miles over the next 20 days, your mind can't seem to fathom it. And there were challenges throughout every day. The heat, dogs, rain, pain in places that I can't describe, and emotions of things that you learn as you go along. And so each of the riders experiences a variety of things as we go along on the bike ride. So what we do is we try to trace as best we can the northern route of the Trail of Tears. We ride road bikes with the thinner tires, so there are a few places where we actually get on a dirt road, and rather than ride the bicycles, we'll actually physically carry them or push them down the routes. But we try to stay as close to that northern route as we possibly can because it helps share the story. And there's sometimes on the bike that we are just riding, and there's not a word that's said between one rider or another. It's just a time to reflect and think about the experience that you're on. I'm going to skip through these really quick because Jared told me to make sure I do this very quickly. I'm just kidding. So this last year, we took 15 riders and 4 support staff. We traveled through Georgia, starting in New Echota, traveling through Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, and winding up in Oklahoma. And we made stops along the way. And I actually went to the national board meeting this year and asked for their help because in 2009 when we made the first trip, we met folks like Herman Peterson and Joe Crabb and Kevin Eads, Jeff Stansel, David Gomez, and others that really took us in and fed us dinner, hosted us with their families, and it made the experience that much better, not only for the bike riders, but for the families that hosted us. And so I said, ask as many that can get involved to help tell the local story, because everybody can tell those stories from each of the chapters and each of the areas much better than I ever could. And so it helped us to share the story with each of the riders. So there's what the riders can expect. They have to train about 45 days in advance. We give them their bicycles and their gear, and they have to ride consecutively for 5 days every week. So we don't want to ride a day and then take a day off and ride another day and take another day. They have to ride every day 5 days in a row, and that's just what I would call the break-in period. And so we do corporate rides, getting prepared for that. But you can see some of the things that go along and some of the funny stories that other riders, if they could have been here, would have told is Sarah Holcomb, who went as a mentor or leader this year. She completed it last year. We asked 4 of our riders from last year if they would go this year and serve as leaders and mentors to our students this year. And I don't know where it was, but somewhere along the way, Sarah was riding with Barron, and Barron said, I've been breaking through this wind all day long. I need somebody else to come up here. Sarah, would you get in front of me? So she got in front, and she got right up next to him, and the wind was so strong she couldn't get ahead of him. And he said, I thought something was going on, like she had a bee in her helmet or something was going on, because she just started shaking violently. And what was going on, she was so frustrated because it was so hot and the wind was so hard that day, she was just grabbing her bike and going, so each of the riders gets to experience not every frustration, but some frustrations and grief that our ancestors faced. And so it's a small glimpse into what each of them experienced on this bike ride. We are planning to do this again in 2011. We would leave in early June and ride back to Tahlequah. There are 2 rest days that we typically have planned, again, following the northern route. But I'm also investigating the possibility of doing shorter rides. 20 days is, well, really officially 23 days is a long time to give up and get people that have the opportunity to be able to leave for 23 days. And so we're trying to find other opportunities for shorter 2 or 3 day rides that might make it more appealing to some other folks to get involved. And so we're looking at that opportunity. And we've also been discussing with the Eastern Band has expressed some interest to possibly join in this learning experience as well. So there's that. And I wanted to say or thank you to those of you that helped out. And there is Ms. Baker there from last year talking to Chief Smith as she shared part of the stories as we went through Kentucky with Ellis, and to be able to share that story from their perspective and the history throughout the town and the stories about each of those locations means a lot, because it bonds us together. And I can always tell when we see somebody that we met along the bike ride, because they immediately come up and hug one of the bike riders, or vice versa. That's the kind of bond that creates. So with that, I'm going to ask, we have 4 riders here today: Baron Oakfield, Ashley Johnson, Kai Quickle, and Brooke Hudson. As they get up here, you'll notice that some of them actually look a little bit different than what they did with when they took their original pictures before we left. So, Kai, I'll start with you.
OCO. I'm the one that chopped all my hair off, which was a subject that we visited quite often with everybody that we met. First thing I would say is, who's the one that cut off all their hair? So I'd come up from the back with my hair going every which direction and being blue in the spirit of the ride. I don't know why I chose blue, I just did. But I had blue hair and got the nickname the Blueberry from Todd. Thanks, appreciate that. This was a really great experience. At first, I was kind of hesitant to go. My best friend, Sarah Holcomb, who you mentioned beforehand, was the one that got me interested in it. And when she told me about it, I told her, I said, Sarah, I have not done anything athletic the past 4 years. What makes you think I can do this? But she encouraged me, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And then I got my bike, and I saw that the tires are about this big, no lie. That made me really nervous. But with Todd's reassurance and with Aaron, Brooke, and Ashley, and all the other bike riders, words of encouragement and helping each other along. If one of us got tired, the other one would get in front of them and break wind for them and just make it easier for them to catch up with the rest of the group. And it's just such a great experience. And I think the Cherokee Nation, Todd Enlow, Chief Smith, and everybody else involved have given me the opportunity to see all these sites, become closer to fellow bike riders, have some kind of a bond with them, and to learn more about my own personal history, which I didn't really have a chance to whenever I was growing up. So it was very important to me, and it was a wonderful experience, and I hope to go again. So, well done.
Hello, I'm Brooke Hudson, and I just want to express that on the bike ride, not only is it physically challenging, but it's mentally challenging as well. There are times when there was frustration we came across and feelings that I've never felt before. And the part that mainly captivated me during the ride was being at Mantle Rock, and that's a part that I really like to talk about because that made me realize why I was there. I had a purpose of being on this bike ride and being in the same footsteps that my ancestors were on, being in the same spot they were. And it was almost like an out-of-body experience and part of the ride that I'll never forget. And being on the bike ride, it helped me also compete for Miss Cherokee because the leadership role that I took on was something that, of course, I'll never forget, and it's just an experience of a lifetime, and I just thank everyone for their support and their encouragement along the way. Because like Kai, I played softball my first year of college, but to be honest, I didn't own a bike. But I didn't let that stop me, and many people let that stop them during any kind of challenge they face. And that didn't even cross my mind that I can't do this because I didn't own a bicycle. And so I want to encourage anyone to just go after anything they want to do, and don't let anyone hold them back. Thank you all.
Signed up for the ride, I will tell you I did not know what I was getting myself into. I had no idea it was going to be as it was. I didn't own a bike either. I hadn't rode since I was little. It was amazing. There's nothing riding in a car or bus, like riding on the trail, it's not the same experience as riding your bike and being out there and stopping at all the historical sites. It was amazing, and I want to thank Todd for going and supporting us, and the Cherokee Nation, and Joe Crab, and everybody who fed us. You guys don't know how much that meant to us. Any food was good food. It was mentally and like physically challenging. I mean, there was one night I cried. I was tired and I wanted to go home, and I just wanted to stop riding, and it was maybe the third or fourth day. I had Kai and Brooke and Baron and everybody else, Todd, there to support me and to tell me that I can keep doing it, and I did it, and it was just amazing and something I'll never forget.
Hello, I'm Barry Hofield, and this is actually my second time doing the ride. I did it in 2009. When I got hired on, my first project was actually to help Todd organize this bike ride, so I told him I would do it. I didn't actually expect to participate in it, but I expected to help organize it. I'm really glad that I participated in it. I learned a lot of family history. I learned a lot about both sides of my family. Met a lot of new friends. 2010 comes around January. It's time to start planning for the next bike ride. Todd asked if I'd help him again, so yeah, I'll help him organize. I guess that wasn't actually in the path or whatever, so I did it again. And physically, it was tough for the first time. Mentally, it was harder the second time. Todd actually had to leave halfway through the trip. He had family issues that he had to deal with, and he left me in charge, so mentally it was a whole lot tougher. Actually leading a group of people that, well, I'm the same age as them, so I mean, I look at Todd and I respect him because he's older. Not to call you older, I didn't say that, but I respect him, and it felt hard to get a group of people that were my age to follow me, but got him back home, did it safely. When Todd came back, that was a godsend. Just 10 days without him was pretty tough. But I'd like to thank Todd, and I'd like to thank everybody that helped us along the trail, and I'd like to thank everybody for being there for me. When I was at my moment when I needed help, they'd step up and they'd help me, and it was a good experience. Thank you.
As Barry indicated, I left during the bike ride this year, and when we first started, I thought, well, it's just going to be a different group of kids. It's going to be the same as last year. We know what to expect. I'm not really going to learn anything new from what I did last year, and boy, was I wrong. We talked about taking the bike riders from last year's to be mentors, and I talked to Baron a couple times, and we've given this presentation in some shape, form, or fashion on a couple of occasions. And one of the things I communicated to him was he may not have realized it, but last year he was a leader in training because I didn't realize that I was going to have to leave 4 days into the bike ride this year. And this is the photo that I took the day that we left. And that's the last photo I have of my dad together with him. That was the reason I had to leave. And so we got to Woodbury, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville. And I got a phone call from my wife that said, "You're going to need to leave and come back home because your dad's really sick." Well, my dad had had a liver transplant in 2007, had his spleen removed, had been in and out of the hospital, had several circumstances where he looked like he was not going to make it that night or through the next week, but he'd always bounce back. And so when I got that phone call at first, I was like, yeah, okay, well, this is just going to be one of those times he's going to bounce right back. And so I tried not to let the bike riders know. We ate dinner that night, and I was sitting there milling over it the whole time and thinking, do I leave? Do I not leave? Do I go home? So that night we got back. We were staying at a little inn there in Woodbury, and I told the bike riders that I was going to have to leave. And it was very difficult for me because not only was I going back to see my dad and my family in the trials and tribulations that they were going through, I was leaving my family that I just connected with on the bike ride and leaving them as they're going through trials and tribulations as well. And so Barron was a leader in training, and so I said, Barron, you're going to be the guy that's in charge. And there are different strengths and weaknesses and capabilities of every bike rider, so don't dismiss any bike rider, because at any point in time, one is going to stand up and be the leader that you need to do something. And so I got to go home to the hospital and spend the last couple of hours with my dad before he passed. Help the family with all of the things that you have to do when you have a loved one pass. And it was very difficult for me, and I was sending messages to the bike riders while I was sitting at home and trying to help plan funerals and everything else, and because my mind was also with them. And I told them it was the hardest thing I've ever done, to lose somebody like that. And I didn't want to go back, but something in the back of my mind said, you've got to go back and finish this. And so we met back up in Springfield. My father-in-law and my mother-in-law and my 2 kids drug me back up to Springfield, Missouri, and we connected back up with the bike riders. And I was able to complete the bike ride for the last 4 days. Man, I was miserable. I didn't tell them this, but you know, you get, when the funeral happens, you know, everybody brings food and pop, and I ate all the things I wasn't supposed to. That first day, I thought, what am I doing? I'm just going to hit onto the back of the car and draft off the truck. But the last night, I got the ability to share with them where I was and what was going on. And the reason I felt so strongly about going back was because our ancestors faced that pain of death every day, yet they kept going. And that is the story of the bike ride, that you face adversity, you survive, you adapt, you prosper, and you excel. And so, as they all indicated, we ride bikes, but they're not Lance Armstrong. I'm not Lance Armstrong. I'm not the most physically fit person. It's not about the physical strength. It's about the emotional and the spiritual strength to overcome anything that's in front of you. And so the bike ride is really about teaching leadership and the ability to persevere. And so I want to thank these guys for taking the courage to step out and say, I will do that, and I will test myself, and I will let everybody know what I'm about. So, whatever.